بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
What does it mean to be a man? See, this is a term which is thrown around loosely, and many of us are still undecided as to what the term actually represents. Does it mean someone who's physically shredded, ripped, goes to the gym? Someone who has a lot of wealth and has a lot of money to flaunt and throw around wherever we can? Or is it someone who's able to pick up girls at the flick of a switch? What exactly does it mean to be a man? Check out our latest podcast with Brother Mohamed Hoblos and Sheikh Haroon Kanj as we really try our best to get to the bottom of this. Assalamu alaikum.
You know what the ugliest thing about what does it mean to be a man?
Yeah.
Is I can say on a personal level is I've never seen a real man in my life. And having not seen it, it's very difficult to
Don't you think that's a bit
determine.
harsh though?
Well, I spoke about myself. Maybe you see men all the time.
I think the true embodiment, like the 100% man, I think this is reserved for none other than Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the perfect man. But subhanallah, I guess...
Well, the scholars, they say, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he is the al-insan al-kamil.
Yeah.
The ultimate, most supreme of human beings. And, you know, we can talk about the theory of what it means to be a man, but really the shortcut to becoming a true man is you have to spend time with real men. Once you spend time with real men and you sit in their presence and you see the manifestation of what a man is, then automatically that reflects on you. And with time, those qualities that you see in them become embodied in you.
So where do you find these true men? Because Hoblos was saying he's struggling to find, men like, I would love to just sit at the feet of, someone great.
Can I ask? I mean, I'm sure you've met lots of people in your life.
Yeah.
Right? Some of them are close relatives, others are friends and teachers. There are many great people. There's no doubt. There's great people that have great qualities. No doubt. But I was saying this to someone the other day. When was the last time you were with someone who you didn't want to leave his presence? Like, how many times can you honestly say that in your life, that I was with someone and I didn't want to leave? It's very rare. Very rare. I can honestly count on one hand in my entire life people who, when I'm around them, by Allah, I don't want to open my mouth. I don't want to talk.
You have that awe. I think...
No, it's not just awe. I feel secure around them. I feel safe around them. I feel enlightened around them. I feel that I can go anywhere with these people. And these are guys who, mind you, they're not complete, but they're very close. So now imagine how a child would feel around this person. Imagine how a spouse would feel around this person.
Special.
Do you know what I'm saying?
100%.
Like, to feel like they never ever belittle me or make me feel inferior or even when I slip in front of them, it's never a moment for him to sort of take
Show his
advantage,
muscles.
right? Or to flex his... And by Allah, they don't even need to ask for it, but they already have authority over me.
Yeah.
That respect.
It's this... It's a unique thing.
So it takes a lot of hard work, and I guess to have that haiba, I guess we can call it haiba, that aura that surrounds you, that respect, it's something we all strive to attain. Like me personally, I'll admit I'm still learning. I'm a new father, I'm a husband, and I'm still struggling. Like, how can I develop myself to be the best man I can possibly be? And it's a long road, but you just have these fragments, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life that you want to implement into your life. You want to be someone of strength, of courage, of bravery. Be a person who can hold that house down. And it's something I want to know. What's the path? But I guess we just have to keep going.
Sorry, can I just...
Yeah.
I believe it's something we have to talk about. And I don't just mean like in the sense of a khutbah or maybe like as a podcast. This is a genuine problem, and we need to talk about it, because when you talk about something, it becomes current, it's on your mind, you become conscious about it. Like one of the problems that I see for myself and for the youth growing up, really for the whole world, is what does a man even look like?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
We're at
Like,
odds. We don't know what to do.
Yeah, so now, generally, right, Muslim or non-Muslim, if you were to ask them, what does it mean to be a man? And unfortunately, none of the characteristics that they'll give you are based on values and principles. It's based on an external factor. So, for instance, we have this again, I know I'm generalizing, but, that a man is wealthy. That contradicts my very creed, my faith, because if Allah has destined that someone was not to be wealthy, so has Allah robbed that person of manhood? Do you know what I'm saying?
100%.
For instance, that a man is physically strong, right? Or that he knows how to. So now we have this phenomena now, right? With
Gym, fighting,
like gym
everyone
and
wants to get
martial
into
arts
it.
and all the other stuff, right? So it's great. I mean, it's great to be healthy, and it's great to be, and it's great to have self-defense. But there's this notion that if I know how to physically fight, that makes me a man. Again, I feel that questions our very faith. When Allah Azza wa Jal questioned the companions in the Quran and said to them, your victory doesn't come because of your ability to fight. It wasn't your numbers that was giving you victory.
Battle of Hunayn, yeah.
Right? No, it was, and
was
even
Allah
the Prophet
subhanahu wa
sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who we were speaking about earlier, and was saying that Allah had given him the best of everything, who did have lots of strength. Some narrations say he had the strength of 40 men and so on and so forth. Yet that was the same man who on a daily basis, his supplication and dua to Allah was always La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah.
That's right, man.
So for me, it's like, like I watch TV, I'm watching a movie, and they're trying to display to me what a man is and how. But then I come and I look, and you read Quran or you read stories of the.
You're at odds.
Yeah.
You're at
So
odds.
there's this challenge.
Yeah. Like who was it? I think it was Abdullah bin Mas'ud. He climbs the tree, and they start laughing at his shins. The Sahaba laughed at his shins. But the Prophet said his shins are like the weight of Uhud. Like this is a man, and despite his stature, this is a man of supreme strength. And at the end of the day, not all Sahaba were like physically, they had this strong, massive physique. Some of them, they might have been small in stature. But at the end of the day, when it comes to their manhood, you wouldn't question it for a second, because these people embodied everything it meant to be a man. And even the Prophet ﷺ on that point of fighting, personally me, I think it's important. Muslims should know how to fight, especially in this climate that we live in. We need to be people that know how to defend ourselves, whatever. But at the end of the day, the Prophet ﷺ, when it comes to fighting, he says, لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالسُّرْعَةِ. He says, the strong man is not the one who knows how to fight. It's the one when he's hit or overcome by anger, he can calm it down, he can settle it. He can still be at that point of focus where he's not, losing his cool every 2 seconds. And which is funny, because people on steroids, they might be physically strong, but everyone knows about roid rage, right?
Yeah.
You go, you flip it.
But honestly, Kamal, even in that example, right? So the Prophet ﷺ had the best of strength.
Yeah.
And we're thinking in this climate, we need to be
Strong.
Okay, why in this climate?
Asbab, Sheikh, tell you.
Fine, no. But Sheikh, what I'm trying to get at is why in this climate? Why? Because there's Islamophobia. The Prophet ﷺ went through the greatest Islamophobia in the history of humanity, right?
Yeah.
And yet, tell me one time when the Prophet ﷺ was violent towards any human being outside of war. I mean, even the most used example of when that wrestler and he challenged him and
Rukana.
yeah, but that was a peaceful contract between two
That's right,
people,
yeah.
and that where the Prophet simply wanted to display that, look, don't be fooled with right. So again, it's like even this very concept of, because now I see guys at the gym, brother, I need to be ready.
For the cause,
It's like we're so, there's this paranoia that soon at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to have to take 7 men in front of my house. And it's like, yeah, but brother, I need to be ready. Like, give me one example.
That's right.
Do you know what I'm saying? So when you look at the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, holistically,
100%.
right? Holistically, yes, was there strong? So there's this thing about,
Look, put it in this, put it in this type of scenario. You have the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, known to be the strongest. Like you mentioned, there's a narration of Sayyidina Anas bin Malik. He says that we used to say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has the strength of 30 men. So undoubtedly, you can't even match him to anyone. Even Sayyidina Umar, the famous Sahabi Sayyidina Umar, he's known for his strength and his speaking the truth. When the story of when he accepts Islam, he comes to Dar al-Arqam bin Abi al-Arqam. The narration actually mentions that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took him by his shoulders and he shook him just once. From that one shake, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, the mountain that he was, he falls to his knees. So you can understand how much strength Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had.
Wait, could I just verify something with you? I heard one narration. I heard that Umar al-Khattab's arms were the size of thighs, like the average thigh.
He was known, yeah.
Like
he was known to be
massive.
very,
But on that, I don't believe
I
stuff
think
like that.
it's strong.
Literally. I think it's. I think the Arab would do that
Maybe, yeah.
to sort
Praise.
of. Yeah, and it's like saying the guy's like a lion.
Yeah,
It's not literally a lion, but it's like an example of.
But subhanAllah.
To put it in comparison, and a very strong man. With that, say for example, the scenario where the Prophet ﷺ is just walking by, and Abu Jahl, this cursed man, he comes to the Prophet ﷺ, he spits in his face, he accuses him of being this and that and that. On other occasions, he chokes him and things like that. And there's no response from the Prophet ﷺ. He just lets it be, seeing that he can. It's not that big of a deal. I've got a greater mission in mind. I've got something that's that's greater that I'm working towards. Let it be. Even if I'm humiliated by this man, it's for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, And he doesn't make it into a bigger scenario than what it is,
I actually wanted to draw something from that point. To have the ability to overlook, to have the ability to forgive, the amount of strength that requires, like mental strength like no other, to have that ability to forgive, look over, wallahi, it's so hard.
Especially
it's so
when
difficult.
We have a misconception also, misunderstanding, that وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا, in the back of my mind, if I'm not able to take this guy on, I'll just,
So we pick and choose when we apply.
This applies when you have the upper hand. Like the Prophet ﷺ, he has the upper hand over the whole of Ahl Makkah. He conquers Mecca, and now the power is in his hand. What does he do? وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا. He applies this on the ground. And if he gives them for the wrong that they done and the abuse that they waged against him and his companions.
That's a big
that's when you know that this guy is a real man. He's a man like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted him to be from the Quran al-Kareem.
Yeah. I remember Hoblos, he said once in a talk, he said, you only be a man on the person that can't do anything back
absolutely.
to you.
But how much do you see that today?
Yeah.
How much do you see that
The
today?
guy's got no cousins, he's got no contacts, khalas, finish him.
Like,
Not even sometimes in the household,
Yeah,
when
of
is he a
course.
real man?
On his
Only in
wife.
the household,
La hawla wa la quwwata
A real
illa
man is, his his wife doesn't raise his voice against him. She doesn't dare to step out of line. This is what it means to be a true man.
Yeah.
But if you compare that to the life of the Prophet ﷺ, it doesn't fit in. I'll mention one example. Actually, it's come in authentic hadith. Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu comes to visit his daughter Aisha, who is the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, and he overhears her. He hasn't entered the house. He overhears her raising her voice at Rasulullah ﷺ. So he enters, and straight away he just wants to, fish khulu, as they say. He wants to put things in line. He goes to smack her. How is she, my daughter, raising her voice against Rasulullah ﷺ? So he steps in, Rasulullah ﷺ says, don't worry, ya Abu Bakr. Things are, it's under control. And then Sayyidina Abu Bakr leaves in an angry manner. So the Prophet ﷺ, he says to his wife, you know, how did you find me when I saved you from that man? You know, so things came down. A few days later, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu returns once again, and this time he finds that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Aisha radiallahu anha, they had put their differences aside and they were sitting down calmly. So what does Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu say? He says, Ya Rasulullah, enter me into your peace treaty just like you entered me into your war. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, we have done so. What you understand is, physical strength, like we mentioned, there's no comparison. You can't compare anyone with the Prophet ﷺ. But in the household, you find that he was a gentleman, that he didn't make a big deal out of everything that takes place in the household. Not every, like they say, not every battle needs to be won. It's good sometimes to lose a few battles for the greater cause.
See, I see as well, I see that, like when I go to high schools, I see young boys, they look at you with eyes that, nobody doesn't not want to be a man, right? Yeah. No boy does, because when we think men, we think of an honorable thing, we think of respect, we think of, right? So no one wants to not be taken seriously. Nobody doesn't. But when we start putting manhood or manhood qualities in things that are out of reach, you destroy.
Yeah.
You destroy communities.
You've
you
made
destroy
it so
nations.
difficult. Yeah.
Right? So now, whereas really the reality is to be a man, it's within. It's values, it's principles. And that's, I would love to start restoring this.
Straight up.
Because this isn't just a Muslim problem. It's an epidemic wherever you go around the world.
True.
Right? So for me, when I think manhood, and that's why, I struggle. Like I see my own flaws. And I think, man, just before when you were asking one word to embody manhood, I think responsibility.
That's straight out, man.
Responsibility, honesty and truthfulness, which goes back to
Qawiyyun Amin.
Yeah, that right? And I believe that we need to resurrect man and everything that surrounds man and the responsibilities of man and honoring man. Because when the man is right, then I believe everything else can feed off him.
Yeah. I guess from what you're saying, definitely we need to uphold the principles of
course,
what it
absolutely.
means to be a man, whether it's honesty, integrity, trustworthiness. But you said something really important, which you said was responsibility.
Yeah.
And I feel like responsibility is one of the most important characteristics, to me personally, at least from what I've experienced, of what it means to be a man, someone who upholds this responsibility. And primarily, I'm speaking about the responsibility in the family. I feel like if this is taken away, then 100% hands down, we'll have the whole society crumbling, as you were saying before. If these principles aren't upheld, it will crumble. And I feel like responsibility in the home is one of the most undervalued principles of what it means to be a man, because if he embodies this responsibility, the family structure will be held up. And I'm not trying to, downplay the role of the mother. 100%, she has a great role. The children, great role. But the father, when he steps up, that's something which we should never ever take it for granted. And Sheikh, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he speaks about الرجال قوامون على النساء, there's this characteristic of qawwama. Now this is something which has been played with, and people want to tweak, distort, and just try to get a true definition of what it is. So what can we say it truly is?
One of the most famous ahadith that people sort of share around and things like that, in regards to marriage, and everyone knows it, that marriage completes
Your Deen.
your deen. If you were to ask yourself
50%.
why, what is the reason that the Prophet ﷺ said that? It goes back to what you were mentioning, responsibility. Because when one is single, there's not much responsibilities on his shoulders. He can easily get by in life. But once he gets married, and with that marriage, Islamically speaking, so much responsibilities come with it. That's, if he mans up and he's able to fulfill those responsibilities, then yes, he has completed his deen. Because Deen, yani religion in general, the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's all about responsibility. It all goes back to the amana that's been placed on your shoulders, that trust to apply and to spread the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That in itself is the greatest responsibility, you know. And like you mentioned, the Quran al-Karim speaks about how men are guardians, protectors of women. الرجال قوامون على النساء. This also has to do with responsibility. The success and the failure of a marriage most of the times has to do with how the man is. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed it in the fitrah of a woman to be affected by the nature of her husband. If he's an upright person, then usually that woman is upright. There's always obviously exceptions to that rule. But if he's a corrupt person, that becomes a corrupt
he has that
family
influence.
also. You know?
He has that influence.
Yeah. And the Quran is very clear on this, and also many ahadith being given on this. Yani, a big problem that we suffer worldwide, in Australia especially, regards to domestic violence, neglect of children, neglect of spouses and things like this. The Prophet ﷺ actually warned us about such things. You know, he's taught us through his life and through his words what it meant to be a man, and he also taught us on the other hand what it means or what it does not mean to be a man. One of them is the one that's, you know, like a tyrant in his home.
SubhanAllah.
He says to his Sahaba, because at the time of the Prophet, it's a long story, but at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, some of the wives of the companions came to his wives, complaining that their husbands were being too physical. So Rasulullah ﷺ gets ear of this from his wives. He becomes very angry. He ascends the pulpit, and his companions are before him, and he makes his famous remark, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ, that the best of you are those that are best to their families. And he says, also within the advice that he gives to his companions, he says that they are not the best of you. Those that are physical with their in their households,
violent,
physical and violent in their households, they are not the best of you. And he says, it may be that one of you is physical with his spouse, and then towards the end of the day or the night, he wants to sleep with her. And it doesn't make logical sense that you act like this. That this is your spouse, this is your wife, this is the person that you are sharing your life with, that you're rough and tough with her, and then towards the end of the day or the end of the night, you want to snuggle up and you expect her to give you your right, and the malaika are going to curse you if you're right, and things like this. And also neglect. In regards to neglect, the Prophet ﷺ, he says that it is enough of a sin to destroy a person. كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ إِثْمًا أَنْ يُضَيَّعَ مَنْ يَعُولُ. That it is enough, if a person had no other sin on the day of judgment but this sin, it'll be enough for his destruction. What is that sin? أَنْ يُضَيَّعَ مَنْ يَعُولُ. That he forsakes or he neglects those that are dependent upon him.
SubhanAllah.
That those that depend on him, it encompasses his wife first of all, and his children also, and all of his relatives that are dependent on him also. So you can see that the Prophet ﷺ defined what it meant to be a man, and also on the other hand, he defined what it is not to be a man.
It's crazy. You've got, one end of the spectrum, which is your physical abuse, the physical violence, and the other end of the spectrum is someone who's neglectful towards their children, neglectful towards their wives. And subhanAllah, today's society, both of these are rampant. In today's society.
Fine, of course. You guys we all know, friends of ours or people that we know. The guy, he works, for example, normal job, comes home, doesn't even spend half an hour, and he's out with his mates again. Out with his mates, playing arba'amiyah, playing cards, going here, doing that, doing this. And he expects, when he gets home, that his family be waiting at the door and giving him the respect.
And it's actually quite dangerous, because it goes under the disguise of, I'm allowed to unwind, right? I'm allowed to have some halal fun.
Rest time.
Right? Which is fine. And it's halal, and it's definitely allowed. But you find we're not doing that. Actually, we're escaping. We're running away from our responsibilities and trying to disguise it as I'm unwinding, right? So, and you find that it's very problematic.
So just on the topic of responsibility, right? I feel like children are a center point when it comes to this topic of responsibility. And I feel like when it comes to our children, a true man is someone who's involved in his children's lives. Because as we were saying before, that, you know, when the man doesn't step up to his responsibility, society falls. And one of the first symptoms of society falling is when the children fall. And I feel like there needs to be some sort of relationship that men embody with their children. You know, I remember Sheikh Harun, you said that famous hadith before, when the Prophet ﷺ, he walks up to Hassan and he kisses them, and then another man comes and he says, I've never kissed one of my children, I have 10 children.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you that this father, you know, these are his grandchildren. He was there, he was involved. They say he would kiss Fatima radiallahu anha, his daughter, whenever he would walk into the room and see her.
That's right.
He was involved, he had that love, he had that bond, that emotional relationship. As a man, as a father, it's something which is so crucial to uphold the family, to make sure that society as a whole functions. And I feel like this is something which we need to stress, emphasize as a society. For men and me, I'm a new father, I'm quick to talk.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I know that this is going to be something, a challenge. I know, Hoblos, mashallah, you've got a massive family, tabarakallah.
See how you went like that, Sheikh?
But definitely,
Allahumma
you're
zid
probably more suitable to speak on this, but it's something which is so crucial and something we should never undermine. To be there present physically, but also emotionally. You know, the Prophet ﷺ, he would have that emotional bond with his children, which is something we should never undermine. And on that topic of emotion, I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this concept of the man today, it's someone who can't express his emotion. And we see that, you know, every single day.
He has to be bad.
He has to be bad, he has to be harsh, he has to be emotionless,
Has to
cold.
be cold, yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, the man is the one that would carry and deal with emotion the best. And you find that even the Prophet ﷺ, and there are many examples of companions who, you know, that when it was time to smile, they would smile. And when the Prophet ﷺ was angered, it was physically visible, yeah, like it was apparent, you know. And when they were emotional, they would shed tears.
That's right, man.
Right? So, and it never took away. In fact, it only enhanced their manhood. It didn't take anything away from it. You know, as human beings now, forget man. As human beings, we're designed like this. We have emotions and we have a physical channel of showing this emotion.
That's right. And I think on the downside, if we look at it on the other hand, it's that when you suppress this emotion, like this is in our fitrah, Allah
It's
made
very
us people
problematic.
who have this emotion.
Very
The Prophet
problematic.
ﷺ, he cried. When his son died, he cried. The Prophet ﷺ, the man who had the most patience, but at the same time, he was affected. He had that emotion.
course.
And he goes, this is rahmah. When he was asked, what is this? He goes, this is rahmah, this is mercy. And it's something we should never suppress. Don't think that by suppressing your emotions, you're more of a man. You're actually harming yourself, like studies say.
You know,
depression.
Sheikh, it's not just with manhood. You find that even many young brothers, when they come onto Deen, we take on this sort of funny
persona
of that now because I'm religious, therefore I have to always be serious, right? I frown more than I smile. You know, that my demeanor has to be a certain way. And thinking that this is what the expectation is. Whereas actually, in reality, it's quite contradicting to how the Prophet ﷺ was. He was always hospitable, always. You know, you always felt like I can be with him, I can be in his presence, I can ask him, right? Like you never feared this. And it's unfortunate because, you know, our women, even with their husbands, they're afraid. You know, I can't talk to him, I can't show him my emotion, how is he going to interpret this? Right? It's this, and it snowballs. And it snowballs. And because, you know, if I can't express my emotion, if I can't, then unfortunately people are going to other means.
It will eventually come out one way or another.
Yeah.
Like your mate,
has
so
to.
whether it's
It
through
has to.
depression, loneliness, anxiety, it's going to come out in one form or another. But you need to be able to have those emotions, but at the same time channel them in the right way. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was a man who expressed emotion himself, but at the same time he was able to understand the emotions of others. you know, we would see that he walks up to the child, the brother of Anas bin Malik. You know, Ya Abu Umayr, ماذا فعل وغير. He says, you know, he sees the child who's saddened by the death of his sparrow.
Yeah.
He goes to cheer him up. And this doesn't take away from your manhood. The Prophet ﷺ,
If anything, it actually it enhances. Wallah, I feel like it adds.
And you know what? You know, it's those little things that a man does in his life that whether he realizes it or not, it has a huge effect, a positive effect on that young child or on that person. You know, Umayr here, although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not write that he lives on, but you can imagine if he were to live on and become an old man, he would have 100% he would have related that story. You know, that when I was a young man, I remember that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam cheered me up because, you know, so how we express ourselves, our emotions, and also how we allow others to express their emotions with us, also especially our family members, is very important. You know, it's very important that your children especially feel safe to express themselves to you, because if they don't express themselves to you, then 100% they're going to express themselves to someone else. You know, like they say, if you don't give your kid time, then your kids will give other people time.
Wow.
You know?
SubhanAllah. It's being that accessible human being. And even, I remember, Sheikh, you taught me this. The Prophet ﷺ, he'll walk in Medina and a little girl will take him by the hand and walk him around. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to anyone else, they'll be, I'll never be seen,
and
being led by a little
about
girl.
Shaykh al-Islam or the Qadi al-Khut. This is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and or under him is the control of the whole Medina, you know. But his humbleness, his gentleness, his accessibility was like this. You know, bil mu'minina ra'ufur rahim.
You know, and I think like for me, I openly confess that I struggle.
I'll join you. 100% join you.
Like, by Allah, it's not easy. It is not easy. And I think in helping men, you know, like how can we help in promoting men is confession that it's not easy. It is a tough job. By Allah, it's not easy. I struggle. I struggle with my family. I struggle with my wife, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Like I don't mean, but because we are limited, and we do have, it's tough.
Weaknesses.
Yeah, of course, absolutely, it's tough, and we need to be supporting one another. Like now, we live in a world where, as a man, I can't seek help, because then that makes me unmanly, right? Marriages are breaking. Brother, why don't you go see, you know, like a pious, God-fearing marriage counselor?
Your masculinity comes into question.
And again,
it's embarrassing.
And again, that questions the very creed of this faith. Allah Azza wa Jal says, and ask those people of knowledge if you do not know.
That humility.
No, but we only interpret that verse as in, you know, I have a halal haram question, therefore ask the man of knowledge, go ask the sheikh. No, this is in all aspects of life.
Wow.
You know, if I want to sell my house, I don't go speak to a hairdresser about the matter, right? No, yeah. So you know, it is tough and it is a challenge, but I believe together as a community, if we keep talking about this problem that we have and we're conscious about resurrecting manhood and empowering our men and our young boys to become men, right? It's, you know, it's okay. By Allah, it's okay.
It's praiseworthy. It's the future at the end
to
of the
raise
day.
your hand and say, look, brother. But again, unfortunately, we have this contradicting community where it's like
Stigma.
You know, subhanAllah, Sheikh, I had this incident, right? We all want our kids to be truthful. And we want our kids to be trustworthy. And we want our kids to be, entrusted, that if they are entrusted, that they don't break that trust, right? But then we do contradicting things with our children. Tell me what happened. Oh, but mum, it was a secret. No, but you have to tell me. Yeah, but we're also teaching the child to keep and protect the secret. So, you know, I mean, I had a particular situation where my wife said to me, okay, so what do you want to do? You know, your child is holding information that is a secret and that they won't let us know. And we need to know because as a parent, I need to. I'm like, yeah, but now we're confusing this child. And subhanAllah, there's a very similar incident when it was Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when his mother gave him a job to do, so he left. When he left the house, he was intercepted by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who told him to go do something for him. So he went, did what. Anyway, basically he came home very late. So his mother was worried and said to him, Anas, where were you? So he says to her, mother, the Prophet gave me a job to do, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she said to him, what did he want you to do? He said, well, I can't tell you, it's a secret.
Wow.
Now, if that's our mothers, right? Like, tell me.
Bribery starts.
Right?
Get the
What do you
lollies
mean? And
out.
I'm your mother, and I'm, right? And either he's going to be punished or he's going to be. No. Actually, what she did was, she praised her child and said, yes, good on you, Anas. Protect the secret of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
SubhanAllah. Oh, that's so beautiful, man. And I feel like moving forward, like for me personally, I feel like there's just so much to absorb. And I do admit I am struggling. It's a challenge myself, in my own home, in my family, in the community, just to be this best man I could possibly be. It's a challenge. It's a struggle. But I feel like, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, I do see the future promising. I feel like as long as we're having these conversations.
Look, we were there, Kamal. We were there at one stage in history. And I believe it can come back.
We make dua, maybe closing dua by Sheikh Harun.
Well, I would end with the $1 million question will come out from this is, how do I work on becoming more of a man?
What's the
And
procedure?
what I mean is a man in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I would say, first and foremost, that I connect myself to the Quran al-Kareem and I start to take the words of Allah seriously. Especially, look, the Quran al-Kareem is a remarkable book. Whatever you have in mind, if you read the Quran al-Kareem with that question that you've got in your mind, you'll find the answer in the Quran al-Kareem. Not once, not twice, tens and tens of times. So, connect yourself with the Quran. Now, there's only a few months left before Ramadan enters. Prepare yourself before the month of Ramadan, reconnect yourself to the Quran al-Kareem and keep in mind that I want to know what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have to say about men. And read the Quran and take it seriously. When you come across a verse that mentions a certain description, characteristic of what a man is, try and apply that in your life. Try and find how this was manifest in the Prophet ﷺ. And also, keep good company. Keep company with people that you see are trying their best to be men. Allahu alam. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides us to that which is most pleasing to Him. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Ameen. Jazakallahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's been an absolute pleasure. So I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I know there was so much more that needed to be said, and there was only so much we can cover in a short time. And even within myself, I really wanted to share so much more, but I guess in a future podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found benefit in the podcast. And lastly, if you do have any suggestions, comments, or questions, please leave them in the comments below. We would love to have you guys involved. Don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.